You're now listening to From the Jump, where we keep the convo going with the latest and greatest in hip-hop. With your hosts, Mr. Wyte and Syllable. They tell it like it is.
From the Jump.
Yo, what up?
What's going on, Wordsworth?
Yo, how's it going, man?
Man, I'm good, man. I was looking at the camera like, yo, the bags under my eyes is crazy. It's your luggage fees.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us for an episode of From the Jump, your source for all things hip-hop. Today, we got an amazing guest on, Wordsworth, with your host, Syllable and Mr. Wyte.
Yo, what up?
Yeah, let's do it.
How's it going, Mr. Wyte? How you been?
I'm doing well. Actually, it's my birthday weekend. You know,
Happy birthday.
I appreciate that. I'm definitely excited to talk about some hip-hop today. We have an amazing guest on in Wordsworth, as you already said. And, you know, hopefully we can, get some real core identity about what is actually going on in the music game. A lot of times people talk about it from the outside. You know, we're underground artists ourselves, but we're getting a chance to talk and feature somebody who's actually been in the game, who's in the game. So this is a big deal for us.
Yeah, and so let's just go from the top because you have an incredible journey. You grew up in BK. You started rapping in the 5th grade. Went on to rap on Tribe Called Quest's "The Love Movement," which it came out in '98. You were featured on Mos Def and Talib Kweli's Blackstar album, as well as Raucous Records Lyricist Lounge Volume 1 compilation the same year. The track you're featured on with Tribe Called Quest's "The Love Movement" is Rock Y'all with Punchline and Mos Def and Jane Doe. And then on Blackstar's album with the same name, you're featured on the track Twice in a Lifetime. You're currently a member of the hip-hop group EMC with Master Ace. So tell us a little about that journey and how you connected up with Tribe.
Yeah, man. Well, it started from just going to a lot of open mics. Like I just went to like New Eurekan Poets Cafe, would be at Wetlands, and just kind of just making my name known around the city. So anytime I can go to an open mic, that's where it was, or outside on the corners rhyming. Anytime I felt like, okay, I had something to say, let me go there and see if I could kind of see if people get their approval. Because you really want to get people's stamp of approval because it builds your confidence, especially when you're young doing it. So now, you know, at those times, a lot of it was going out open mics, getting stamp of approval. Today, in some regards, is you post something up, and if you get a lot of likes and views, that pretty much equates to the same scenario in a way. So after a while, it's changed totally. So then when I was in Norman Thomas High School, I met a friend named Sono, and he actually knew Punch. They were close and tight friends, and then we were in a group together. So it was actually 3 of us before Punchline and Wordsworth. So then Sono goes to college, me and Punch stay together, and we were track masters at that time. And then Stretch Armstrong and Bobbito, that show, Stretch Armstrong Show, is like a staple in New York, and they even have a DVD and everything based on it, was the premier show you would go to rap and freestyle, and the whole city would know you. And by the time people recorded it and passed the tapes around and cassettes and so on and so forth, you would get your notoriety there. So me and Punch made those rounds, and then the Lyricist Lounge asked us to be on the showcase. And I believe the host didn't show up, so they asked Q-Tip to host, and Q-Tip saw me and Punch perform, and he was like,
nice.
He called the lounge like, yo, who those 2 dudes right there, you know? And then we met with Q-Tip, and he was actually starting a label at that time, I believe with DreamWorks had a deal. And then long story short, he already knew Mos and Kweli. So then we knew Mos and Kweli, but from a different angle. So it just made sense because we met him from a different situation. They already knew him. And then it's like, yo, you know these guys? I know those guys. Boom. So that's how it ended up. And then that's how at that same time, we're appearing on Kweli and Mos album. And then we're appearing on Tribe album. And then, you know, things go from there.
Now, did y'all record that project like old school style? Y'all was all in a lab, or did y'all have different studio sessions and they got engineered together? Because that's I always want to know about the.
Yeah, we were there. We were there. At that time, recording the Blackstar session, that was the first time I heard Cannabis. What's the song? Buckingham Palace.
Okay,
that's a good one.
He was already kind of like bubbling, but then somebody was like, "Y'all got some new cannabis," and we played in the studio in Buckingham Palace, and I was like, "Okay, this is dope." So that's a memorable moment from recording that session. And then another memorable moment would be during the Love Movement album, and Q-Tip bet anybody that can get their verse in one take, he give $100 to.
Really nice.
Yeah, and I got to my last two lines, and I messed up.
But I guess they're true professionals in that sense. They're not in there trying to mess around. They're not 100 take guys or nothing like that. They get in there and they get their work done, and that's impressive because I've had my own little studio situation where I was recording people, and a lot of artists don't believe that there are people that they just go in there and they just rock that mic. They don't come to play when they come to the studio time. They're not all day. Not at all. I mean, at that time, we all came together and we wrote our rhymes in the studio for the Love Movement project. So that was dope to be able to sit there, vibe, write rhymes, be in the studio together. And then we went in there, and then when Tip goes, he does it with one take. It was done, like, so then you go like, okay. But overall, a lot of that type of things I just learned from overall going to the studio. I don't show up to the studio without a rhyme written, period. Like I record everything myself anyway. I've been recording at home since Mirror Music pretty much. So I don't play those games at all. I'm not coming to the studio unless the rhyme's written.
I think one of the things that you learn when you are recording your own music, and you have to record more. The more you record, the better you get at recording. One of the things that you realize, and we've seen this in the tracks we released a track a couple days ago, and it came out real clean. And we were kind of looking at the dynamics of like, well, what made this track real nice? And it was because it wasn't 100 takes. It was only a very few amount of takes, because the art of performing in the booth is a separate art from performing on stage and from doing the audio engineering. You can have 200 takes, but that'll never replace that original energy when you can just get on there and spit.
I think one of the main keys to record in the studio is respecting people's time. That's how I am. I think we should look at it, right? The engineer comes there. I've been in sessions and people got the engineer just sitting there. They ordering food, and the artist is ordering food. Don't got a verse written, just killing the studio budget.
Yeah.
And the engineer sitting there. Yeah, this engineer just sitting there, like, because I think that shows like your level of respect for that person's time. So I think you got to go to the studio with the mindset of time, and time is a luxury, really. So you want to go in the studio with your stuff prepared. Yeah, you might mess up a couple of times here and there, but I respect that you showed up, and as soon as you got there, you say, "Hey, give me 2 minutes, maybe restroom, get something to drink, get some food ordered, and let's go in the booth." But I don't see this. I look at this as my office. So I don't come in here to play games. I don't play that game at all. So
that's etiquette. There's the studio etiquette, and not everyone understands that. And I appreciate you bringing that to light. Some topics that we do cover on occasion is, what is it like recording at home? How to set that up? What are the things you should know about? And then collaboration. So you bring up great points there.
Yeah, my setup is right here, man. Like literally, it's right there. The mic is right there, and
nice.
I just been doing it because it's just easier to do in there's other circumstances, right? So let's say if you're doing music for TV and things like that, you may need to record something and it needs to be done within a few days or done by tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I've seen friends that they don't listen. I'm like, man, you got all these new sneakers, you got all the latest everything else, but you have no studio. Wow. And so if you're doing like stuff for TV and stuff like that, sometimes the ETA on things like that is like a day or maybe hours. So having a studio, if there's a lyric I might need to change, I can change it. I can do that. I've seen other people, it's like, I'm waiting for somebody to come through, or my man ain't here to the studio. I can't, it's always delaying your stuff. So that's another rule that I follow. Like, I'll record my whole album and then worry about features. Because you can't depend on people that aren't really self-sufficient.
That's a good tip.
Man, that's powerful.
So for your background, you went on to co-found MTV's Lyricist Lounge Show in 2000, which had guests like Big Sean, Notorious B.I.G., Eminem, Snoop Dogg, Erykah Badu. I saw her live at Rock the Bells. That was powerful, amazing, incredible. And the Lyricist Lounge Show, for those that aren't familiar, combine traditional comedic skits with breakthrough concepts of lyrical sketches, innovative convergence of hip hop music and theatrical narratives. You did the theme song for that. So tell us a little about what that was like. That sounds pretty incredible. What events led up to linking up with MTV?
Yeah, well, it got caught on tape during a Firehouse Studio recording of the first Lyricist Lounge album. If you listen to that album, there's skits in between, and you got all these ciphers with rappers rhyming. So at that moment, all of us were there. So, I mean, it's no way you're going to get 30 rappers in a room and nobody's rhyming. It's just, it's just the competitive nature is everybody's like, okay, I can show I'm the best. You know, I can show whatever the case. So during that session, my boys Wise Guy and Gaston, they are known historically from that era to always have a radio and video camera. So they started playing the beat. Once you play a beat, that's it. So when it came to me during that cypher, I just was like, I want to do something different than everybody just rhyming. So I basically created a tutorial on how to write rhymes. So I was acting like the wall was my board, and I was making a at-home tape to teach you how to write rhymes. And then the other artists in the room began raising their hand, and I would respond to them in rhyme on how to correct things.
That's dope.
So that was like the first skit in a way caught on tape. And that skit became dubbed on the videotape as The Professor. So now you had this tape going around like The Professor, and it's me teaching people how to rhyme in the room, answering back and forth rhyming. And then a friend of mine named Jake Septimus, he has the tape. He's like, man, this could be a TV show. You know, I go meet him at his house. He's like, man, this could be a TV show. I'm like, all right, man, well, you know, holla at me when you think it'd be a TV show.
Exactly, like, sure.
Why not?
Right. At that time, I'm only like maybe like 21 or something like that, maybe 19, 20, something in that range. I'm not thinking nothing like that. Like this, you know, you telling me this could be a TV show, because in some regards, the mindset of doing music is usually you do music, you get a deal, then you get a deal, and then you can do movies and TV or whatever. I kind of basically skipped all that. I went from rhyming in the street and went to a TV show, you know? Wow. So it wasn't even on my mind to fathom that sequence of things happening. So he's telling me that, and then lo and behold, he wound up getting a pilot call for auditions, and we're like, for real? We fly out, and we flew out on a Friday, audition, and got a call Monday, and then the show came on. Now, the show is basically, for those that don't know, it's basically Wildin' Out, but not live. So you're like Wildin' Out, they come up with different scenarios live, and they do it in front of the audience. We would come up with our scenarios, and we would have a set built. So we would have to write 1 week, and then the next week, the sets would be built, and then we film that week. So that's pretty much some of the main differences with it. But you know, the freestyle aspect, Nick Cannon, I believe he knew that was a big situation from watching Lyricist Lounge. So it was smart of him to like say, yo, if we just did the show like that,
live audience,
yeah. So he was smart to acknowledge that, being that he was already kind of an executive that young, he was able to acknowledge that and capitalize great. So, you know, now you got a great show that's on TV from that.
And there's something that I think only people that do hip hop or improvisational jazz, like some of the greats did with Miles Davis, you know, and John Lee Hooker, and is the concept of that energy that's created when you're in the moment, when you're freestyling, whatever that is. It could be improv comedy, it could be jazz, it could be hip hop. But when you're in that moment, there is undefinable energy that is there, that is just created from the people, from the moment, from the realization. This is not pre-scripted.
Right. Yeah, I think it's all on the line right there. It's almost like you had to be Tom Brady every time. That's how I looked at it, you know, like I knew at the end of every episode, once the ball is passed to me or whatever the case, you know, once it's thrown to me or I catch it, whatever, if I'm throwing it, whatever, the world is about to see what I can do. So it was always that it's a little pressure, but it really wasn't pressure to me. I felt more like it's just fun, like, you know, because it's coming at that moment. What I'm gonna do? We're not rewinding it. We're not editing it. It's whatever I come up with that moment. I just try to think of it as fun, and it is what it is. I don't, you know. I think one of the other things is like my ego wasn't so concerned about what my freestyle was like on the show, because I think I already established that I could rap anyway. So it wasn't like you're gonna be like, oh, that freestyle trash, he not good. It's not gonna be like that. I think it's more like when we would do tours based on the lounge show, when it was out like that on TV, people would actually come to the show and say, they only know you from the show about freestyle. I know your songs. I know you're rapping on this. So I wasn't concerned too much. So that's what kept it fun for me, is the fact that I'm not judged by a freestyle, which I don't think nobody should be, you know?
Yeah, you already had your pedigree.
Right. If you do your thing, you do your thing.
So is there anything from that era that during Lyricist Lounge that you had in your back pocket that you didn't get a chance to explore that you would have liked to?
You know, not really, man. I'll be honest. I really don't. I kind of just look at my journey as what it is. The one thing I would say is you wish you can have soar down the line further and things like that, because everything's based on decisions. But at that time, I think we were, some of us, if not a lot of us, were like the guinea pigs for what was going on.
Yeah.
At that time, right? Like the game is still super young. The game is only a few years older than me in some regards, like hip hop, right? Like just hip hop in general and making rap music. So I just take it for what it is and just happy that I was willing to adjust, because I think that killed a lot of artists from the 90s, because it was such this underground versus commercial thing went on heavily back then. And then people were like stuck in their ways, as opposed to, if you're understanding it as a business and you want to be here for long term, you have to make the proper adjustments, and also without losing your integrity. So I always was just trying to make sure whatever adjustments I made, I was able to maintain my integrity, but also willing to learn.
That is not common, but I respect that a lot. I think you address some of these topics in your song Vanish with Master Ace, and I was peeping that earlier. So speaking of adjustments and speaking of different eras of hip hop, how do you think hip hop has changed since '98?
It's more accessible. Anybody can literally anybody can do it. You know, like you get a program on your phone, you get a program, you know, it's accessible, easily accessible as far as getting equipment, right? So before it was like, I got to go to the store, buy MP, make beats, it's that. Now it's like, I got a program right here, I'm going to make the beat. So the accessibility has changed it to allow it to be more consumed by people that are there and just want to hit a button and then the world hears it. Now, back then, we were trying to go to offices and show up at a meeting, and that person ain't there. That person cancels on you. You know, you may have gotten the wrong address. You show up late. You know, it's all these dynamics of somebody putting you out. Now it's like, only person that can stop you from coming out is you. Before it was somebody, I got to get a deal. That was the main thing. You run around town trying to get a deal, I'm trying to get signed. Now it's like, I don't care if I get signed or not, man. I'm putting this out tomorrow. You know,
I mean, a lot of labels now are looking for artists that already have a following, versus before they were more willing to create that artist and really work on their total package or whatever and put a lot of money behind them. Now they're like, look, you ain't got 100,000 people following you. What we gonna do with you? Because you're basically, artists are saving the time and the labels having to do all that work for them and saving them money. So
that's it. Everything's a shortcut, man. I mean, people will like shortcuts, especially if they're going to invest money, right? So if somebody, let's say, could build something for you, you know, and they already got the supplies to build it, and you know, that cuts that out for you. You're like, all right, well, cool. We ain't got to order the supplies. And somebody pop up like, I don't got no supplies. I don't got no tools, but I could do it. Then it's like, yo, you know, I'm ready to go. This guy right here, he's ready to go. It's just urgency and shortcuts are very key. It's just really what it is with almost anything in life. I think you have to not dislike that. I think you have to kind of honor that people have that want stuff done immediately and people prepared. That's really what it is. They want people prepared, as opposed to just some random, I'm gonna take a chance on this guy, this girl, or whatever. Is that this person is grinding, putting in the work, and they're prepared for me to invest in them.
That's such a dope point. So we really appreciate you, Mr. Wyte, and I thank you for joining us for this episode of From the Jump. We'll see you on the next episode as we continue on this exploration. And listen, so many great topics covered today. How hip-hop has changed since back in the day, doing open mics, trying to get signed there. And nowadays, if you post something up and get a lot of views, it's almost the same scenario, and how much the game has changed. Love what you talked about with that opportunity of seeing Cannabis record Buckingham Palace when you were working with Blackstar. That was dope, and that was pretty funny hearing about Q-Tip offering $100 for those that could do the verse in one take. Man, the pressure has got to be on for something like that. And I love everything that you mentioned when you're talking about how, you got to come to the studio prepared and don't waste people's time. It's definitely something that you got to be considerate of for studio etiquette. And that was definitely a game changer for the tip on having that home studio on lock, not just buying the newest things, but having a home studio that's already well done enough that if you are doing work with TV, like the feature you did recently on Netflix, you don't have to worry about it if it's a deadline in an hour. You already got the studio set up to do that. That is such a great point. And then the last point that you made, that you shared with us today, which we really appreciate, is the whole concept that instead of hating the system, you got to understand how the system works. And that folks that want to invest, they want musicians and artists that are already prepared. So that's definitely point. If you're grinding, you built that audience, you're more likely to get signed. Well, thanks for joining us. We really appreciate you for this episode of
From the Jump. Peace.